Yo guys, it's Jim and Brian with Drink a Beer and Play a Game. And yes, we've been away, and yes, we are back. Between Brian's bachelor party and a few trips of my own, we've been a little busy. But it's back to boring old regular life for us, so expect more content on the way. And we come back to Snoopy's Silly Sports Spectacular. Jesus Christ. Or just Snoopy, if you look at the main screen. Released in 1988 in Japan, and in 1990 in North America, this game is actually a port of a Commodore 64 game known as Alternative World Games. Now, in Japan, the license went to Donald Duck. In America, we got Snoopy. The game was developed and produced by Kemco. Who's Kemco? Well, if you ever played any of the Top Gear games, then you know who Kemco is. Anyway, let's get on with the review.
Alright guys, Brian here to talk about this odd-ass game we decided to play. So right off the bat, let me say, I really want to focus in on the control, the gameplay, and the replayability. Why? Because I probably had the most time with this, unfortunately, and I got to experience it all in its glorious suckness. So let's first talk about what's actually offered in this game. You have 1 and 2 player modes, and you can either select which minigame you want to play, or you can just play them all in a row. The games included include a sack race, which is legitimately you just racing in a sack, a boot toss, where you spin a boot around and see how far you can throw it, the pogo jump, which is basically just a race with you using a pogo stick to jump over obstacles, the overboard stage, which is oddly enough 2 Snoopies fighting each other on a gondola trying to push each other off.
It's his brother Spike!
God damn it, Jim! Ow! Don't you correct me! I'm a perfectionist! The pile of pizza level, which is you're carrying a stack of pizzas and you have to try to drop as few as you can. And then there's a river jump, which is just requires you to pole vault over a little mini lake or river or whatever the fuck it is. It's a body of water.
It's a creek!
Shut up! Ah! So anyway, now that I described the games, how do I feel about them? Well, overall, like any game that offers a variety in minigames, it was interesting enough. However, we really felt that this was just a goddamn button masher. Here's a little disclaimer: if you are going to get this game, buy yourself something with a turbo button, because you are going to mash the shit out of the A button. And in general, you barely use the D-pad. Games like this kind of piss me off when all you have to do is really mash a button. Some of them, it's slightly about timing, and especially if you're going against a buddy, it can be, I don't want to call it strategic, but there is a little more skill. But in general, it's really a luck and guessing game. The gameplay overall it didn't impress me. I wanted to like this game because it offered something new, and I get it's aimed at children, but even as a kid, I would have been like, I'm bored as fuck with this. What the hell? As far as replayability, you just have these events, and really you just have going against your buddy or playing by yourself. If you're playing this by yourself, then you really should probably have a case of beer next to you, because that is just a sad, sad sight. But either way, you're not going to find a lot of replayability here. With all that being said, I'm going to have to go ahead and add 6 beers right off the bat. Yeah, you heard me. That's a 6-pack you're going to need right away to even start playing this game.
Alright, I am going to be talking about the presentation and the originality. You know what? Screw it. Let's get the originality out of the way. There isn't any. Maybe the events are the types of events you really typically don't see in these kind of games, but how many of these freaking moldy minigame NES games are we going to play?
But Jim, how many games have Snoopy and Spike?
You didn't even know Spike until I told you!
Spike.
Anyway, the presentation. I'm actually surprised at how much I like the graphics in this game. I'm not going to say they're great, but for when it came out in 1988, it's not bad. For 1990, it's a little iffy at that point. To be fair, the colors are nice and vibrant, the backgrounds have some good detail to them, at least in a lot of the stages. Some of them are a little crappier than others. Overall, the graphics aren't too bad. Even the Snoopy animations in certain events aren't terrible. It's not great, but I like it more than I thought. Can't say the same about the music and sound, though. The in-game sound effects are kind of almost non-existent. There really isn't a lot going on. And anything that is there is basically drowned out by the music, which is very simple, almost single-tracked. And while there is different music for each stage, it's not different enough that you can even remember hearing different songs. I had a hard time remembering. I had to go back and watch the video again. The sound department, very mediocre and disappointing. Graphics, surprisingly decent. Originality, ugh. So, the beer. At least the game's pretty, I'll give it that. But I can't recommend any less than 4 additional beers just to get some kind of more enjoyment out of this game.
Jim, would you say that you had beer goggles with this game?
Why did I come back? Why did we start this up again? We had a nice thing going during that break. I'm gonna go back to that break.
Alright, so listen. Overall, we get it. It's a game that's aimed for a younger crowd, and it shouldn't be criticized too harshly. However, we also say, fuck that. It's a video game. There should be a certain amount of entertainment. And while the presentation is, as Jim mentioned, surprisingly above average, everything else just falls really short or just comes up really mediocre. And as you can see from our final score of 5.2, that's where it is. It's just barely above average. Really, if it didn't look as good as it did, it would have dropped well below that score. However, between that and the fact that the control, while it's a button masher, was responsive enough, it gave it the points it needed. So when trying to pair this with a beer, it was really tough. Just like this game was designated for a specific group, and if it just fell to mediocre, we wanted to pick a beer that had the same appeal. So we had to go with Corona Light. It's not as good or as bad in some people's opinion as the original Corona, and it's really aimed at people who just want to go to the beach and have a good time and somehow keep a bikini bod while pounding back beers. You put that logic together because it never worked for us. But anyway, so grab yourself 10 of these beers because you're going to need it to enjoy this game. Make sure you check out how we arrived at our scores in the link in the upper right hand corner on our website. And as always guys, thanks for checking out this review.